Hi! So, I wanted to share a fun and relaxing painting activity for us to do together if you have the time right now. If not, plan on blocking out 30 minutes this week where you can follow along and give yourself a moment to relax and a moment to express your creativity. So we're going to be painting some letter forms, and you can either choose a word or a phrase that you would like to hand paint. I'm gonna keep it simple, and I'm gonna choose a simple reminder that I often need. So mine will be remember to breathe. It sounds simple, but sometimes we get so caught up in just everyday tasks that in my case as well, I find myself holding my breath. And so this is going to be a sign that I put up in my home to remind myself to take a deep breath. And what better way to do that than to make it ourselves? So you can either do that or choose your own word or an affirmation if you prefer. And so I'm going to be using a copy, not blue pencil to lightly sketch out my letters. It is erasable. And you can buy these online or at your local art store. But what I like about it, as opposed to the graphite pencil for light sketching, is that it's easy to paint and over the blue line and cover it with paint with fewer layers than with graphite. And I'm going to be using the tools that I use for most of my work, which is gouache, but you're welcome to use anything else that you have. The main rule of creativity is to have fun, because I find that if you set that as the main goal of whatever you're trying to do, whether for yourself or professionally, the work will come out better if you're having fun. It will be stronger, and it'll be infused with more of your authentic self if you're actually enjoying the experience. And art takes a long time to create, so why not have fun while doing it? Okay, so let's get started. So I'll be using my Gouache gouache paint. This is it comes in a beautiful box, and as you can see, it's very well loved. You get an array of colors that you can just reactivate with water, and then a tube of white. And what I've done over the years is once I run out, I don't usually replace white with gouache because I find that it's very expensive for this miniature tube. So what I will often do is I will get a tube of acrylic, which works just fine. And you can get a variety of colors. I like to have a cool white and a warm white. That's how you can get a larger variety of color when you're color mixing, is having cool versions and warm versions of each primary color. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so I have here watercolor paper. It's usually what I would recommend if you're using gouache, but if you're using something lighter like markers or color pencil. Just regular drawing paper should be fine. The reason is because we use a lot of water, and what will happen if your paper is too thin is it will buckle, meaning it'll like start to shrink, and you'll have all of these ridges, making it a little bit difficult to work with. And so the way that I usually start if I'm hand painting letters is I will just draw the words that I'm trying to paint in first very light, with light pressure, and I don't try to draw like the style of the letter. All I do is I draw like a stick figure version of each letter. So mine was remember to breathe. So I'm gonna do that. Remember to breathe. And you want to be mindful of your page edges. So it may take a few tries to get it to fit nicely without going outside the edges of our paper. And this is a good exercise if you are experiencing any kind of writer's block or creative block. I find that drawing letters really helps to get the creative energy back. One thing to note is to be mindful of your spelling. There's been instances where I've put in a lot of work and only to realize that I misspelled a word. So yeah, let's double check our spelling here. Remember to breathe. Okay. And so I have the light outline of my letters, and usually I just jump straight into painting. And I like to just go ahead and start with a thick enough brush that minimizes the amount of passes I'll have to do. I think this one is too thick. We'll try this one. I'm not sure what color you're going to use, but I think I'm gonna try out some green here. A little bit of this turquoise. And one thing with gouache is I usually like to work from dark to light. Here we go, that's a nice green. Very lively. I'm already breathing thanks to this reminder. The first stage is just getting the first layer onto the paper. And since our main goal is to have fun, is to not get too caught up in everything being perfect. Let the lines be expressive. And try to vary the weight as you're drawing, so that means going from thick to thin, usually on the downstroke. Okay, so now that I have my first layer, I'm going to go in and add a second layer of a darker green to make like a shadow underneath this green. And one thing that I do with color mixing to make shadows, I rarely use black to make shadows and darker colors. If I use black, it's to use it on its own and enhance, you know, the beauty of the color. But what I find with painting and color mixing is that when black is used to make like a shadow, the color tends to become grayish and muddy. So what I actually prefer to do is I just make my own by mixing like the primary colors, which you can do very easily. And what it does is it creates black. It's still black, but it has like a warmth to it, depending on, you know, if you add more warm colors versus cool colors. And it doesn't look like gray. So that's something to consider. And I'll often keep my scraps of paper handy to do color testing. So it's one good way to recycle your paper there. So I've got my color here. And I'm just going to add the illusion of a shadow on each letter. And I am by no means the world's expert on hand lettering. What I like to do is I follow my curiosity of what I think would be fun to see, and I do my research, my studying, and I pay attention to typography. That's been done over the years, and there's some masters out there. Like there's one from near my hometown in Florida. His his name is, or his business name is Sunshine St. Pete. And oh my goodness, his hand lettering is insanely good. So check him out. If you need any hand lettering work, he's like a master of it. I am more of like a hand letter who does it because it truly gives me joy. And actually, when I started it, well, I'd never planned on painting letters. It seemed like such an odd thing to do because, you know, there's so many programs out there that make typography a million times easier. Why would you spend hours lettering? I think that's a fair question. Because I actually really love writing, and I've always had a lot of like fears around writing and insecurities. It's not, you know, English is not my native language, so I don't always have the words to express what I want to express, and that can make writing, as you can imagine, difficult and frustrating. And so what I've found is that doing some sort of like hand lettering, doesn't matter what medium you use, it actually kept me connected to writing, because one of the things, you know, when starting something new that you've never done before, it's very intimidating, and you're not sure whether you can even do it, you know. And that's how I felt about writing. And for years and years of journaling, I noticed that when I wasn't sure what to say, I would start to draw, or, you know, draw little pictures and illustrations, but I would also do some light hand lettering, and it gave me the same level of accomplishment that you know, full-on writing can give you if you love to write and express yourself with words. And so when starting something new that you've never done before, and that is very scary, one of the pieces of advice that I've heard and that I agree with 100% is you take the smallest step forward. So you start small, somehow you find something, one little action step to take in that direction. And if you want to write and you are intimidated by it, I recommend starting with some sort of hand lettering. And the way I started was, of course, you know, I think the way everybody starts is you write and doodle quotes, other people's words. I have a box full of those. And then, so that's how I started, and eventually I got a little more comfortable with it, and I started hand lettering just words that meant something special to me. And then from there I added another word and another word, and yeah, that's how I've stayed connected to writing, especially when I feel like I'm stuck or have some sort of block is hand lettering. I consider it a form of writing all on its own. Visual writing. So yeah, so that's how I started. I'm almost done here with this shadow. And I've continued to hand letter, basically because I like to grow my skill set in what I'm doing and try to learn all I can. And so adding shadows has been something new, unlike rendering with paint is definitely something new for me. It's not always the best, but I have a lot of fun with it. And as you can see, painting is very slow, and you kind of have to be slow because it doesn't have the benefit of being able to easily remove something on the spot. You can, of course, digitally. For myself, if I don't like the end result, but I like the overall piece, I like to scan and see if I can polish what I was envisioning a little bit more. But when you're in the moment, you have to be slow. Very intentional about each stroke. Now, one of the things about gouache that I do love is that you can mix it in a way that it's thick enough or opaque enough to like go back and maybe cover or fix something. But you have to be careful with that, because if you use too thick of a layer, it actually begins to crack. I actually had that happen when I was in college. When I started using gouache back in the day before Instagram was a big thing. I didn't even know what that was back then. But I spent a ton of time, and it was for a class project with a very strict teacher. I spent so much time on that gouache painting, and I ended up making the layers so thick that when I went back to check on it when it was dried, it had cracked. Like when you drop an egg on the floor, there were just cracks everywhere. And I had to explain to my professor that yes, I had done the project, but because of my lack of knowledge in the properties of gouache and what you can and can't do, I basically lost all of the work to the cracking. It was very hard to tell what the image even was. So yeah, if your layers of gouache are too thick, the paint will crack, and that's not good. So from here, I have my shadows, and I think I'll add some highlights, but what I like to do is mix up the mediums that I use, because I like the effects and I like the change. Keeps me from getting bored. And so I'm going to go in now and see what I can do with marker. I think I'm going to experiment with this Jelly Roll pen. And a Posca marker here. So I have the tools that you see. I've had these tools for years. A lot of them just are very durable, and so I think normally we think of traditional art as being very expensive, but it doesn't have to be. You can get high quality supplies, and they will last for years. I haven't replaced my brushes in years. You just have to take care of them, you know, so that they do last. So here's what I did so far. I did a mid-tone in green and a shadow in this dark green. And to be honest, I'm a little scared to add this blue, and I experience this all the time. If you see my paintings and you're thinking, wow, she's really got it together, she knows exactly what to do. It's not the case. I'm always scared because of the fact that it's very hard to take back your mark making. So something to do if you're feeling that anxiety is to just remember that we're gonna have some fun, and that means embracing being scared. And it may not work. It might work, and it might look not great. So it's the risk we take. I think you can always go back and add some green. You can layer the gouache. But this is something that I've been trying with my letters. Just adding some color, like at least 3 layers of color. I like the depth, even if the placement doesn't always make sense. Gives it a little character. Now, I'd like to incorporate more lettering, I think, into my painting. At the moment, they are 2 separate entities, but I think it'd be interesting to to somehow combine the two. If you have any ideas on how that could work, let me know. You know, I'm always experimenting. Okay, so I don't hate it. I like the blue. It looks a little darker than on this test piece, which is very interesting. The white background changes how the color looks. So that's something to look out for when you're painting as well, actually, how colors influence one another. It's very interesting. I want to be careful not to smudge, so I'm going to flip this around. It's very windy today. I don't know if you can hear that. Okay, take a deep breath. Whew. Let's remember to breathe. Okay. Let me test this out. Make sure it's not clogged. No, it looks good. Looks like the blue might be a little wet still. But I just want to add some texture, basically. Make it a little unexpected. It's interesting to go from digital to traditional because the way you know, you have to basically the same effects is so vastly different. Like I would probably have to find some sort of brush digitally to get this, but by hand the process changes from finding a brush to how do I problem solve this with what I have. It's just a very interesting process. Like there's nothing there but the tool and you just have to figure it out. It's interesting, I think. The letters are starting to take on this weathered effect, which is very interesting. And it looks like the jelly roll is slightly clogged, and that is making it easier for me to control the heaviness of the texture, which is very very fun, I think, because that was not intentional. It would have actually been very difficult to keep the texture from looking too mechanical if the tip wasn't clogged to begin with. But I like happy accidents like that. If I were drawing this on my tablet, I can honestly say that I don't think I would have discovered this, like this way of rendering the text. It just sort of happened. But now I will always remember it as a technique. Well, I hope that whatever phrase you chose to work on gave you the opportunity today to be creative amidst, everything you have going on in your life. And whatever you worked on, that you have the opportunity to display it in your home, somewhere where you can see, to inspire you to keep carving out a few moments a week to express your creativity. And if you are interested in more of my work, you can always visit binberry.com. That's where I have some of my finished work available. Your support is immensely appreciated. It helps me to continue to grow and share what I know. If you're not on my YouTube channel yet, you can go ahead and subscribe. But the best way you can support the work is by getting on my email list and sharing your ideas, sharing what you're up to. I always like to keep in touch with everybody. I hope you have a wonderful end of February and that your March is hopefully a little bit warmer. And spring is right around the corner. So I will see you next month, and thank you so much for tuning in to Creative Sparks.